Hello, YouTube. Pastor Jack here, and welcome to my study and welcome to my channel. First things first with Pastor Jack. I hope everything's going well for you today. We're going to start a new study today, and we're calling it Paul's letter to the Romans. And we're gonna just go through Paul's letter to the Romans. We're not going verse by verse. I'll explain a little more about that in a few minutes, but we're going to look at this letter that I think is very, very important to the church today. Uh, you know, Most of Paul's letters were written to churches that he knew and the people he knew. Uh, he had been to the churches for the most part that he wrote letters to, and many times he was writing them in a response to questions that that church had asked, or things that he knew that was going on in the church. And it would be wrong of us to read this letter and think it was anything any different. Although Paul did not know or he had not been to the church at Rome. Uh, but he did know many people, as we see in the 16th chapter of this letter. He did know many people that were at the church in Rome, and he had knew them from other places. And so the letter does address issues that the church in Rome was having with Paul's ministry. And for us to overlook that and bypass it would be wrong. It's a pastoral letter uh, where Paul is taking the position of pastor of the church at Rome and answering their questions that he knows that they have, although he's never been there, but questions about Paul's ministry. Um, the church in Rome included Jews and Gentiles, and the church in Rome had a little ego problem, kind of like the church today. Uh, Rome, of course, was, the Roman Empire. Rome was the headquarters for the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire was winning all battles that it had. So the Roman citizens in general had a little bit of an ego problem. And, and they had kind of set themselves up in a little judgment of Paul. And so Paul wrote the letter to address these issues. Again, Paul never been to Rome. He knew a lot of people there, but he had never been there. Um, those people that he knew, no doubt, had sent him questions that was being asked in the church of Rome about Paul. Satan meant that for bad. Satan meant that for bad because Satan was trying to attack Paul through these people that didn't know him. But God meant it for our good because what we got out of this letter is one of the greatest theological statements in the New Testament. Paul, in addressing the issues that they were having with his ministry, just nailed a theological book here. It's full of systematic theology. Uh, it's not a textbook. I wouldn't call it a textbook because Paul is still addressing the issues that they had with him, and it's more of a pastoral kind of letter, but man, it's full of theology. And so put your waders on. We're going to get out in the deep water a little bit here, and we're going to talk about this. One of the questions, though, that we got to ask whenever we read the book of Romans is, where is Peter? The Catholic Church claims that Peter was, for 50 years, the bishop at the church in Rome. And you would think here, Paul writing this letter like at 54 AD, which would be at the peak of what Peter should have been, the pastor at the church of Rome. And Paul doesn't mention Peter. Nothing in the letter mentions Peter. Uh, Matter of fact, we know for a fact Peter was other places during most of the time that they say he was the Bishop of Rome. He was in Jerusalem most of the time, taking care of the church in Jerusalem, which was his job that Christ left him to do. And Paul was in charge of the Gentiles. So just another fallacy of a church that preached in Latin for hundreds of years when nobody in their church spoke Latin except maybe the priest. I'm sure that won a lot of people to the Lord. So it's just another fallacy, a claim of the Catholic Church. Peter was never, as far as we can tell, involved with the church at Rome. They like the statement, on this rock I'll build my church, and they want us to believe that he was talking about the Catholic Church, which he was not. I don't know if I ever talked about that verse on this channel. I will someday and explain to you what that's talking about. So since this is such a theological rich book, I'm gonna teach this book, teaching through some theological topics. I'll take a theological topic, and we'll jump all through Romans, finding the verses that where Paul discusses that topic, and it'll be a theological topic or a doctrine topic. I don't know if I've explained the difference in theology and a doctrine, but basically, theology is the way we view God. A doctrine is once we decide how we view God, is rules on how we're going to live our life because we view God in that way. And so they're closely tied together, but they are two different things. And so we will, we'll pick a theological topic. I will jump around in Romans, finding verses and sometimes whole chapters where Paul talks about that theological topic, and we'll break it apart and look at it, and we'll learn the theology of it and the doctrines of it. At the same time, in most of those, Paul is addressing some kind of issue that the church at Rome might have had with his ministry, and we'll talk about that whenever we get to it, and we'll try to look at the pastor side of the book of Romans, where Paul is addressing the church in a way that edifies the church, and because that's what this channel's all about. First things first, getting the theological and the doctrine set correctly, but edifying the church as we do it, not tearing the church down. If we talk theology and doctrine, and we do it in a way that beats people in the ground, we're not accomplishing anything. And Paul understood that. And so he was edifying the church. And the questions that they had, he was building them up and teaching them what the correct theology is, and what the correct doctrine is. And that's the way we're going to look at this book, and it's the way we should look at everything in the Bible, because that's what God wants us to do, is we need to seek first the kingdom of heaven, and then all the other things will be added to us. God bless you. This is just the introduction. Tomorrow we'll take off with the first theological point, and some of them's going to take a couple of days, so there'll probably be a part 1 and part 2. So just hang on, get your waders on, because we're going to get out in the water a little bit now. God bless you, and we'll see you on the next video.